Here's a number that shouldn't make sense. According to Stack Overflow's 2024 survey, about 76% of developers reported using VS Code. Vim sits at around a quarter. Neovim, Vim's modern fork, even less. By every normal measure, Vim is a minority choice. And yet, in Stack Overflow's 2024 survey, Neovim earned an 83% admiration rating, the highest of any development environment measured. Translation: almost nobody uses it, but almost everyone who does will not shut up about it. That gap between how many people use a tool and how intensely those people love it is not normal. That's not a text editor. That's a personality trait. And the psychology behind why that happens is genuinely fascinating. Because Vim doesn't just edit text differently, it rewires how you think about editing text. And once that happens, something changes in you that's very hard to undo. The trap door. Nobody decides to learn Vim. What actually happens is this. You're on a server somewhere, maybe you SSH into a remote machine for the first time, and you need to edit a config file. Someone told you to type vim followed by a file name. You did. And now you're staring at a screen where nothing works the way you expect. You type, nothing appears. You press backspace, nothing happens. You try to close the window, and the window doesn't close. You are, for the first time in your computing life, genuinely trapped inside a text editor. This is not a joke. The Stack Overflow question, how do I exit Vim, has been viewed over 2.7 million times. Stack Overflow's own data team calculated that during peak hours, roughly 80 people an hour are getting stuck in Vim with no idea how to leave. And here's the part that makes it even better. The developers most likely to get trapped were front-end web developers, people working in CSS and jQuery, people who never asked to be here in the first place. They typed git commit, their terminal opened Vim by default, and suddenly they're prisoners of war in a text editor from 1991. Most people escape, close the terminal, and never return. But some people, a very specific kind of person, look at that strange, hostile, completely unintuitive interface and think, what if I learned this? And that thought is where everything starts. The skill ceiling drug. Here's what makes Vim different from every other editor on a psychological level. Most software has a learning curve that flattens. You learn the features, you memorize the shortcuts, and then you've learned it. There's a ceiling. VS Code, Sublime, even Emacs. You eventually reach a point where the tool stops teaching you things. Vim doesn't have that ceiling. Vim is a language. It has verbs, delete, change, yank. Nouns, word, line, paragraph. Modifiers, inside, around, until. You combine them the way you'd combine words in a sentence. D-I-W, delete inside word. C-I, change inside quotes. D-T, delete till closing parenthesis. And the more fluent you get, the fewer keystrokes the same edit takes. You discover a motion you didn't know existed, and suddenly an 8-key operation takes 3. Your brain gives you a clean hit of dopamine and immediately starts looking for the next optimization. This is what psychologists call flow, Csikszentmihalyi's term for the state where the challenge of a task is perfectly matched to your rising skill level. Time disappears. The internal critic goes quiet. You feel merged with what you're doing. His research found that programmers enter this state more reliably than almost any other group, and Vim is structured to keep triggering it. The challenge escalates at exactly the pace your skills improve, which is exactly the kind of feedback loop humans become deeply invested in. The IKEA Effect. But the skill ceiling only explains why people stay. It doesn't explain why they get so weird about it. For that, you need the IKEA Effect, a well-documented cognitive bias where people assign disproportionately higher value to things they've personally built. Now think about what a Vim user's setup actually is. It's not a settings menu. It's a configuration file, sometimes hundreds of lines long, that the user wrote by hand. Every key binding, Every plugin, every color, they chose it. They debugged it. They iterated on it over months, sometimes years. Their .vimrc isn't a config. It's an autobiography written in keyboard shortcuts. And this is also where autonomy comes in. Everything in Vim is text. Everything is scriptable. Nothing is hidden behind a GUI you didn't ask for. No surprise updates, no telemetry, no corporation deciding what features you need. The user has total ownership, which means telling a Vim user to try a different editor isn't like asking them to switch tools. It's like walking into a house they built with their hands and saying, "Have you considered just renting an apartment?" The Holy War. There's one more psychological layer, and it's the funniest one. Vim users don't just love Vim. They love Vim against something. The Vim versus Emacs rivalry is one of the oldest running arguments in all of software, dating back to the mid-1970s Unix community. Vim advocates call Emacs a great operating system lacking only a decent editor. Emacs users respond that Vim has two modes, beep repeatedly and break everything. Neither side has ever won. Neither side will ever win. And neither side actually wants to win, because the argument itself is the point. This is identity through opposition, the same psychological wiring that powers sports rivalries and console wars. Having an out-group to define yourself against makes the in-group feel tighter. I use Vim, by the way, is a direct parody of I use Arch, by the way, and it works the same way. It's a tribal signal disguised as a casual statement. The Vim user knows Emacs isn't actually the enemy, but having one makes belonging feel sharper. The part nobody expects. Here's where I need to stop being funny for a second. Vim was created by a man named Bram Moolenaar. In 1991, he built it as an improvement on an older editor called VI. The name literally stands for VI Improved. And from the very beginning, he made a decision that no other software creator has ever really replicated. He made Vim charityware. Every time you open Vim without specifying a file, the splash screen doesn't show a logo or a version number or a tip of the day. It shows a message asking you to help children in Uganda. Bram had volunteered as a water and sanitation engineer at a children's center in Uganda in 1994. He went back many times over the next 25 years. He founded a charity, ICCF Holland, and quietly tied it to the editor that millions of developers use every day. Not loudly, not as a marketing campaign. Just a small message on a splash screen that most people skip past without reading. He died in August 2023, and the grief in the developer community was real. Not sad about a tool real. Sad about a person who had spent 30 years quietly funneling a piece of nearly every programmer's daily life toward orphaned children, and never once made it about himself. What's actually going on? So here's the truth about Vim users. Yes, they're chasing a dopamine loop that turns text editing into a speedrun. Yes, they've built a config file that's basically a load-bearing wall of their identity. Yes, they enjoy being part of a tribe with a 50-year-old rivalry that neither side will ever concede. But underneath all of that, underneath the memes and the gatekeeping and the I use Vim, by the way, there's something simpler going on. They've found a tool that rewards them for getting better, that gives them full control, that belongs to a community with real history, and that was built by someone who thought the most important feature of a text editor was a reminder to help someone else. One Vim user put it best. After investing so much time, the attachment isn't really about the tool being objectively best anymore. It's sunk cost, habit, genuine fondness, and after a while, it's hard to tell which. If you've ever spent an unreasonable amount of time perfecting something that technically didn't matter, a desktop, a playlist, an espresso recipe, you already understand. In the end, people don't become loyal to Vim because it's the best editor. They become loyal because, over thousands of hours, part of themselves ended up inside it. And you can't quit something that has you in it.